So, David, welcome to the Crypto Princess channel. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing? Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I'm doing great. I'm good, doing great. I'm looking forward to hearing your story. So, David, if I was to meet you in high school, what kind of person were you?
Um, Interesting question. I was mostly a quiet kid. I was very non-confrontational, kind of kept to myself. I was a pretty good student, had pretty good grades. But I was also on the football team, and I was playing varsity football starting my sophomore year. So I wasn't like the best player on the team, but I was pretty good. I ended up going to college for it, but um, I was fairly quiet. Didn't really like the super jockey kids, but also wasn't really hanging out with the nerds. I was kind of just doing my own thing. I would be the guy that all the classmates would come to and be like, "Hey, what'd you put on the test?" or "What should we study for the test?" And so I was kind of a nerd, but I played sports. It was a weird mix. So I kind of like didn't get in with this crowd, but I didn't also get in with this crowd. Luckily, though, I had a girlfriend for most of the time, so my time was pretty occupied, so to say. So I wasn't like searching for things to do or friends to hang out with, and so yeah, I was kind of that nerdy kid, but also played sports, and so people were like, "Oh, is he a nerd? Is he a jock?"
Awesome. So, after high school, you went to university and you studied macroeconomics, which is brilliant for crypto. But at the
Yeah.
time, why did you choose that subject and what did you do immediately after university?
Okay, so when I first went out, when I came out of high school, I decided to take a year off, which people say don't do it, and I agree because you take a year off and you taste freedom, and then you're like, I don't want to go back to school. But anyways, I did that. Then I went to UNLV which is the state, the local university here in Las Vegas, and I originally was gonna do business entrepreneurship. And I started, you start taking all the prereq classes that have literally nothing to do, like history of rock and roll. Like, what is this going to do for my business entrepreneurship? And then I remember someone telling me something. They said, "Why are you learning entrepreneurship from an employee?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Well, the teacher is teaching you. Have they ever owned a business?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know." So the next day I went to one of my classes, and I said, "Hey, have you ever owned a business before?" And they're like, "Well, no." And then it kind of clicked in my head. I'm like, okay, this guy's kind of right. And so I stopped taking business entrepreneurship, and I started looking at my okay, to run a successful, because I've always been a business oriented. My dad owned his own business for years. He was self-employed for the major, like pretty much his entire life, and started working at age 13, 14. So I've always had that business mindset. I've always wanted to be a business owner. And so I was like, okay, what do I need to know to be able to run a business? So I started looking into marketing, and marketing was kind of boring to me. And I met with one of the executives here at Caesar's Palace marketing. I reached out to Caesar's like, hey, I'm thinking about getting into marketing. Can I speak to like a marketing director of the company to kind of see what the day to day would look like if I were to enter into the workforce versus starting my own business? And so they set me up. I think the guy's name was Kirk. I think so. So anyways, he was like, it's pretty boring. I was like, oh, great. I did not want to hear that. He's like, he's like, if you want to learn marketing for your business, you're better off just, learning the new age of the internet and all that. And so I landed on macroeconomics because I've always been a numbers person. I've enjoyed numbers. I've enjoyed charts. I've enjoyed metrics, statistics, the economy. And so I leaned in there, and then I stopped going to UNLV. I actually moved to Sweden in 2010, and then came back to, so here's a timeline. Graduated high school in '07, went to UNLV in '08, and then '08 everything crashed. I went to North Dakota for a year and then came back. My dad lost a business, so I was kind of stuck like, do I go back to college in North Dakota, which, by the way, I loved it there. I was on the football team. I had friends up there. It was a small town. It was so much fun. Um, and so I had a decision to make. Do I come back and help my family, my mom, my dad, or do I go back? And so I decided to not go back to college. I stayed here in Vegas. I picked up a couple jobs. And then in 2010, 2011, moved to Sweden for a year and a half, hated it, moved back here. And then I've been in Vegas kind of ever since. I know it's a long-winded answer, but yeah.
Awesome. So from my understanding, you got into crypto in 2016. Now that was very, very early. Bitcoin was only 7 years old. And it was on the cusp of its second bull run. That's how early it was. 2016 was a year of steady growth. Bitcoin started off the year at approximately $400 and it finished the year at around about $1,000. Now, Bitcoin wasn't mainstream in 2016, but the stage was being set for the explosive 2017 bull run. How did you get into crypto? Who introduced you to crypto so early?
Okay, so I got in towards the end of 2016. I was working at a restaurant called Mesa Grill, and there was a customer there that I was serving food to, and he was like, talking about crypto. I was like, "Are you talking about crypto or Bitcoin?" He's like, "Yeah." And then he showed me on his phone. He's like, "This is a Coinbase app," and it was literally like at the time I remember it was like, I don't know, the interface looked completely different. So he's like, "You should buy some, man." I was like, okay, all right. So I think I threw like $200 at it, and then everything started going up. I was like, 2017, the bull market. I was like, okay, it's pretty good. But I didn't invest any more money, right? I wasn't really digging in and learning. And then 2018 rolls around and everything just completely tanked. But for me, I always try to stay mentally a few steps ahead, like instead of building something for what people need now, you should build something for what people might need 5 years from now, right? So give yourself a little bit of a head start. So I was like, is this something that could be beneficial to people, to investors, to really anything in the next 5 to 10 years? And the answer clearly to me was yes. And so during 2018, when everything started going down, really started digging in, doing research. And I didn't start really heavily investing until like 2018, 2019. I bought a little bit. I got into the euphoria. We're all human, right? I bought into the euphoria stage. I actually bought some Bitcoin at the top in 2021 as well. But at that point, for me, I like to look in time horizons of 5 to 10 years. And even if I bought the top at Bitcoin in 2021, I really wasn't worried, even when it went to $15,000, because my time horizon was so large. I wasn't worried about, getting a 4, 5, 6x in a matter of a year or 2 years. Is more the long game for me. So that's kind of what happened. And for me, it's always been about, again, just anticipating the future. And if I'm going to build a product or service, anticipating the needs of those people in the future and to be able to build that. So when that time does come, you're well positioned to be able to capitalize on it.
Okay, so for those people who are not aware, in 2017, Bitcoin started off at $1,000 and it ended the year in December around, well, just under $20,000. So your $200 turned in a couple of $1,000.
Yeah.
Who helped you when you got in?
YouTube. Just watched. So the guest at the restaurant, showed me, and I went home. I watched some videos, downloaded the app, and I just watched how to buy Bitcoin on Coinbase, and that's how I bought it. There wasn't a lot of people. I've never had a ton of friends, right? I'm very selective in people I call friends, and so I don't have like this big group of people that I can like, hey, have you ever? So just a few people I reached out to. They're like, yeah, I've either never heard of it or, oh, it's a scam. So I just, YouTube just literally has anything you can possibly think of. So just searched it up, how to buy Bitcoin and the best platform to buy Bitcoin. And I was curious about taxes, and I was curious about, historically, how has Bitcoin performed? So that's kind of how I did that.
And did you start off as an investor or as a trader?
In crypto?
In crypto.
An investor.
An investor. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you stuck around for the 2018 bear market. Now you did have a bit of a background in finance. Were you aware of the difference between a bull market and a bear market?
In crypto?
In crypto.
I've heard of the 4-year cycles and the halving cycle, and the 80% drawdowns in bear markets, and of course, every cycle people are like, well, this time is different, and look at these metrics, and it all ends up being the same, just maybe a little accelerated on the timeline or decelerated on the timeline. But I mean, I didn't really have any belief as far as, well, I fully believe we're in a bull market. I fully believe we're in the bear market. I was kind of just, especially in that time, like 2018, 19, even 20, those years were kind of a blur to me. My father died at the end of 2017. And I was starting a new job, and that kind of really just threw everything off. So I was in and out of, trying to keep my mind off of things and studying it. And then also, dealing with my mom, my 2 younger brothers, I've got a wife and kids. And so it was definitely a weird time for me. But I would say like 2020, 2021, 2022 is really where like my horizons expanded. But as far, what was your original question again? I'm so sorry. I went off on a tangent here.
No,
What's
no,
funny is my co-host. So the shirt I'm wearing, this is my co-host, Robin. He's the one that usually goes on tangents. So I think his face is rubbing off on me on the shirt.
no, that's fine. You've answered the question. Okay, so then we had 2028, the bear market,
Yeah.
2029. Now let's talk about 2020. So in 2020, we had the COVID pandemic.
Are we allowed to say that now?
Oh, I don't know. I think so.
I'm just kidding.
I
don't know.
been
Maybe
told any different.
Well, I remember you couldn't even say the word COVID or pandemic. They would literally take your video down.
So in 2020, obviously the world, especially March 2020, Bitcoin and crypto was hit really, really hard. So Bitcoin went from $9,200 US, and it fell literally within a couple of weeks to $3,800 US. Yeah. Lockdowns all over the world. You had, just as you were saying, you had a wife, you had children, you had responsibilities at home. What were you doing with COVID? What were you doing with crypto during this time? Did you exit or did you stay in crypto?
No, I didn't exit. In 2019, we had closed on a house. Well, it was a new build house, and so a lot of my free capital I put towards the down payment, and we started buying stuff, and so I didn't have a lot of capital ready to deploy, but I didn't sell. And this is something I tell people that watch our show all the time, is for me, when I invest in something, before I invest in it, I have a thesis, right? Like my thesis for Bitcoin, it's the largest peer-to-peer decentralized computer network in the world. It holds value. That's my thesis for investing. Excuse me. So if all of a sudden the price goes from $9,200 to $3,800, my first question is, what happened? If something fundamentally changed to my thesis, say the network was degraded, there was a 51% attack, let's say a bunch of miners unplugged, I don't know, something that would change my thesis, at that point, I probably would have sold. But if it's something that I can point my finger to and say, this is why it dipped, and I'm fairly certain it'll come back, it's just another buying opportunity. And so I tell that people all the time, is that's why it's so important before you enter or put money into a project, you have to have a thesis. Why? What do I think it's going to look like in 2 years, in 5 years? What does it solve? What utility does it have? And then when you have these wild, volatile price swings, go back to your thesis, write it down somewhere, go back and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, did any of that change? No, it's just price action. Perfect. I'm either buying or I'm holding. And so for me, it was never a, oh my God, I got to sell everything style moment. To me, I looked at it as a buying opportunity. It just sucked that I didn't have a lot of capital ready to deploy to buy a good amount. I mean, I bought a little bit, but a lot of my money was tied into the house that we ended up not even getting. I was so pissed.
Okay, so after we had the COVID crash, Bitcoin did start to rise again, and then obviously a year later, in April 2021, we had the first peak, and we'll talk about price action in a minute. But around this time, it was quite interesting for you because you met Rob, didn't you? Was that in the beginning of 2021?
So Rob and I both opened Hell's Kitchen in Las Vegas together end of 2017, but we were never friends. We were more colleagues, like not accomplices, but just we didn't hang out on the weekends and plan things together, but we would talk. If there was a social gathering with the work people, we'd go. But yeah, so we knew each other since 2017, and we were always like the crypto guys, right? We'd have a text thread of me, him, and a few other people in the restaurant that were crypto people, and me and him would always banter back and forth. And so when I got that call, it was in end of August, beginning of September of 2021. He gave me a call. He's like, "Hey, you want to start a YouTube channel?" So yeah.
Okay, so before we get to August, let's go back to the entirety of 2021. So 2021 was a bull run year. We came into 2021, we were going parabolic. We hit April, I think it was 64,000 US dollars. And then the China FUD hit. And then we dropped. Now, this is very important because many people don't like drops, but in the last bull run, we actually dropped 50% and we ranged for quite a while before we went up, and then we actually topped in November 2021. And the reason why we topped, well, one of the reasons was because of the supply shock. A lot of the Bitcoin was taken off the exchanges. It was a very, very difficult bull run. Were you aware of double tops, and how did you prepare yourself, or what did you do when Bitcoin had a double top?
I didn't expect a double top. I expected a thing to run to at least 100 grand off of the first high. And now that we found out what Sam Bankman-Fried and Alameda was doing, I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I can see why we got the top now, but at the time, there's no way. Like, I think it was almost everyone assumed last cycle we were going to get the 100K. And it's not to say that previous cycles price, or any cycle, right? Any market prices are manipulated, but what Sam Bankman-Fried and Alameda Research were actively doing to suppress the price of Bitcoin. And then we just did, like you mentioned, that big drop. And then we saw the final high in November of 2021. I was a little shocked, when it came back and it surpassed that 64,000, like, all right, this is going to 100. And then boom, Luna, Three Arrows, Voyager, FTX, Genesis, DC. I mean, everything just started piling on top of each other, and we saw the bear market. So
yeah. So what were you doing at this time? Were you still an investor, or had you started trading
during the first top?
2021? Just the whole of 2021.
The whole of 2021, I would say I was more of an investor. Yeah.
Because previously, in another life, were you a trader? Because I know you have a financial background, don't you?
Yeah. So one of my good friends, Sheldon, shout out to Sheldon if if he catches this. He got me into options trading. This was back in 2011. So I started options trading. Really started when I have my mind on something, I get very I just zone in, right? I kind of just, it's all I think about. And so got into options trading, started watching a lot of videos, went to conferences, read some books, and really dug into the charts. And I was doing fine with that. And then I just kind of stopped. I don't know why exactly. It's probably like 2015-ish. But I kind of stopped and didn't really pick up the charts to actively trade until I'd say, I don't know, maybe 2022-ish, middle to end of 2022. Really started, focusing more on charts and trading, and just here and there. It was never, hey, I'm a day trader. This is how I make my income. It was more so long positions, short positions, but nothing on a consistent day-to-day basis.
So you were investing pretty much most of 2021. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about 2022. So we hit into a bear cycle, and just as you said, we had Luna, we had FTX, we had 3 Hours Capital, we had Voyager, black swan events, one after the other. Were you prepared for the bear market? Because this would have been your second bear market.
Define prepared.
So as the price started to go down, as we declined, the price went down. Did you change any of your strategies?
No. Not for the previous market. For the following market, yeah. Bear markets are great for research, right? You find out a lot in bear markets. You want to make life-changing money, it happens in the bear markets. I know the price action doesn't happen in the bear markets, but the research, the time, everything you do is happening. It happens in the bear market. So, some things I was paying attention to: what teams are building, what teams saw their valuation drop, 90, 95%, and just kept posting, doing AMAs, building, bringing on developers. So there's certain metrics you can track. And also, again, looking ahead, well, okay, what's the next cycle going to look like? Okay, this cycle, what happened? You kind of analyze it. How is that going to translate to the next cycle? Who's going to stick around from the previous cycle, right? Are users growing cycle to cycle, right? Bear market to bear market. Do we have more people holding Bitcoin than we did in the 2017 cycle or the 2014 cycle? And so, as my thesis that never changes, I have my goals and my game plan before the bull market even starts. So I create that during the bear market. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to deploy. Let's say I have $100,000. All right, I'm putting 20% away for this sector, 20% away for this sector. I'm keeping 50% in Bitcoin. That's going to be the anchor of my portfolio. And let's say 10% is going to be the super speculative. Hey, if it hits, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. It's not going to bring my portfolio down. Then I go into each of those percentages and I'm like, okay, well, what do I think is going to be beneficial in the next cycle? What I think is going to run? Is there ones that are on major discount that I believe will come back and make a new all-time high? And then the next one, okay, DeFi. All right, great. What do we see this cycle? So it's a process, but that happens over time, and it happens when everything is down. You don't do that during the bull markets, right? The bull markets, I say 70% of your research and your plans and everything should already be done. And that 30% you leave to adjust and make sure, you can call audibles if you need to. But the bear market is where the money's made. You might not see it in your account right away, but that is where the money is made, is in the bear markets, not in the bull markets.
Oh, no, I totally and utterly agree with that. So just before we go back and we touch upon the YouTube channel, because it kind of really took off in 2022. In November 2022, we hit the bottom around about 15,000 US dollars. So the Bitcoin bottom. Were you aware that the bottom was in? And did you buy more Bitcoin around that time?
I did not know the bottom was in. I thought it could maybe go lower. And I'm sorry, but anyone that says I definitely knew the bottom was in, I mean, you can have an idea of the probabilities. Like, hey, it's a 50% probability the bottom's in, but I actually thought we were going to go to $10,000 to $12,000 last November. But happily, I didn't. So when I'm unsure of something, unless something is glaring and is just flashing in your face, or you see something on the horizon that could potentially be a spark to reverse the trend, I just DCA. Just keep it simple, I got 20 grand set aside. I'm going to buy in $1,000 or $2,000 clips every time the price moves down 10% or 5%, or anytime just make it simple, right? Every week, just $500 or $100 or $20, no matter what the price is, whether it's on the way up or on the way down. You do that over one entire cycle. I mean, wasn't there a story about a guy who was doing like $30 a week into Bitcoin for 8 years, and the 86K turned into over $1 million?
Okay, I haven't heard it, but yeah, that sounds about right. DCA never fails.
Yeah, so for 8 years, this guy, $30 a week, no matter what. It was either a week or a day, into Bitcoin, no matter what the price was, didn't care, no charts, no news, nothing. Just set it up automatically on whatever platform he used, and did that for 8 years. Didn't sell, didn't touch it, didn't freak out about it. And then the guy's got over $1 million. So it's what does that tell you? That tells you if you do something and you're consistent over a long period of time, it's really not that complicated.
Okay. Let's talk about 2022, Rob, and the channel.
Mm.
So you knew Rob from Hell's Kitchen, something that you
Mhm.
guys set up together.
Mhm.
He rings you up one day and he says, "Look, we're the crypto guys. Let's start a YouTube channel."
Yeah.
Right. So what was your thought process?
At first I laughed. I was like, YouTube. Okay. Um, and then, you know, I have an absolutely amazing wife. If it wasn't for her, none of this would be possible. Zero. And so my favorite trait about her is she is the most supportive person that has ever been in my life. Not because she's my wife, out of everyone. And you know, I was at a point in my life where I was really struggling with the 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 field of work I was in and the direction of my career, and I kind of felt lost. And again, you know, after my dad passed away, it really put a lot of things in perspective. It's like, well, we don't really have much time on this earth. And you know, I remember one of the last text messages my dad ever sent me was, "I wish I could have spent more time with my kids." And I still have that message saved in my phone. And I have 3 kids, and I did not want to be 50 years old, not even watch my kids grow, and then look back and say, wow, where the hell did the time go? And have the same doubts. And so I was kind of stuck. I was like, I know, okay, I want to get out of the restaurant industry. The money's good, the benefits are great. You're on the strip, you make good money. You know, I would make more in one night than people do in 2 weeks. So, but it was, for me, it was never about the money. It was about the time, the quality of life. And unfortunately, in restaurants, you don't really get that. It's weird hours. You get off at 1 a.m. You've been starving for 8 hours. You try to go home and eat something, but then you got to sleep, and then you don't want to wake up too late because you want to see the kids. And so, um, I was in a place where I was looking for something, but the problem is, us restaurant industry people, we don't believe we have any skills. We look at ourselves as, well, we just clear dirty plates. We are just servers. But I would challenge those people, and maybe you watching this show, maybe you're a restaurant employee, maybe you worked in a restaurant, you have a friend that has, and maybe you feel the same way. Look at it as, what are some of the strengths that are needed to be in restaurants? And for me, I looked at it was my personality. I was always really good with people, my personality, and being able to gauge people and interact with them in a positive way. And so I used that. And also the other thing too was I would always watch this one show called The Herd by Colin Cowherd. It was on an ESPN show. It's a 3-hour talk show. And I would sit there and I would debate with the host who was on the TV. And I was like, what are you talking about, dude? You're an idiot. No way. He would have done the. So my wife would always joke, like, you should apply. Cause I was like, I don't know what to do, babe. Like, I don't want to be in the restaurant, but so she was like, why don't you apply to be a sports anchor on ESPN? And I just laughed it off. So long story short, Rob calls me. I laugh originally. I talked to my wife about it. She's like, I did tell you, you know, you should work for ESPN. This would be better because you kind of do it yourself. You'd own it. And then I was like, you know what? What do I have to lose? It's better than doing nothing. And so I called Rob the next day. I was like, hey man, I'm down. Let's do it. And we got together. We kind of brainstormed, and yeah, here we are.
Hmm. So what were the difficulties in actually opening up your YouTube channel?
So we took the long route, the expensive route. So you know, YouTube is so simple as far as, hey, camera, microphone, get a OBS or StreamYard, whatever, and you're good. You don't need to spend a ton of money, but I think the biggest challenge for anyone entering into the space is credibility, right? You know, you have people like Crypto Banter, like Ran. His channel is massive, but he also had a big following prior to launching his channel. And so brought up a lot of his audience from his previous vertical or wherever he was doing. I think it was at one of the big networks. Either way. And then he brings that over to YouTube, and it gives him a great head start. And that's not taking anything away from Ran. Obviously, it took time to build that audience in the first place to bring him over. But for us, we had zero audience, zero. We would go around to our coworkers and be like, hey, can you subscribe to our channel? So the big thing is credibility. And so we looked at it, we're like, okay, what advantage do we have? We make a lot of money in the restaurant at Hell's Kitchen. We got a lot of money on the side. We got a lot of crypto. Like, what if we did a studio? What if we, instead of building a YouTube channel, we built a media company and our product is a crypto talk show? And so we're thinking, and me again, I'm thinking ahead. You see the trend of people consuming information, news on YouTube versus on podcasts, YouTube, right? The citizen journalists versus mainstream media, Fox, whatever. So I'm like, you know what? That actually sounds good, because you have a space that's new, that's kind of the boomers and Generation X kind of punted it for the most part. Then you got the millennials and Gen Z that are tech forward, are open to change. So I'm like, all right, where are these people consuming their information? And when crypto goes mainstream, where are people going to go? Sure, they're going to go to Bloomberg, they'll go to MSNBC, CNBC, but I think YouTube's going to play a big role. Now my brain starts thinking, I'm like, okay, there's a level of quality that these people that are watching these highly produced shows that they are expecting, right? Not some, and I'm doing this from my home, but we have a studio in Vegas, not some just average, like what you see here. This is cool. I do it from my house from time to time, but if you watch our show Monday through Friday, you'll see our studio. We got a beautiful LED wall. We've got a news desk. It's almost $1 million studio. But the point was, there's a level of production quality that people expect from watching these other highly produced shows. And there's really no one doing that outside of maybe one or two channels in our space on YouTube. And so we're like, okay, it'll set us apart. It'll give us credibility from a visual standpoint and from a perception standpoint. Like, okay, these guys are professional, right? Versus random in a dark room somewhere, lighting's off, microphone sounds echoey, and whatever. And so it was those two things that really led us to say, okay, let's make the investment. And this was really all Rob's vision for the most part in the beginning, as far as how to build out the studio, what we should do. Let's get this equipment. It was a lot of learning and a lot of trial and error. But when I started putting the pieces together in my mind, I was like, okay, I think this will be worth the investment. And we're doing it at a point in time. And we started in 2021. And we're really still expanding, like even to this day. And so we're always looking ahead, when thinking ahead. And so to us, that was important, to be able to separate ourselves from the rest of the pack and also be a place where people are like, okay, this is not just a hobby. This is a business. This is a professional studio. This is a professional production. We have a production team. We have an audio engineer. And so to us, this is not just a come in here, trade some meme coins, extract value from our community, and be like, oh, well, that was cool, man. We'll see you in the next cycle, and stop creating content. To us, this is our business. We put our money where our mouth is. We love this space. We believe in this space. And so, yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that. Tell me about your production team, because your shows are very, very well done. So who do you have on the production team?
Okay, so we have Rocco, who is really the captain of the show. If you have you seen pictures of our studio?
Oh my God, yes, I have.
Okay, it's like the production room where Rocco operates is like the cockpit of an airplane. There's so many freaking buttons, but he really is just the backbone of our entire show. And then we have Ashley, who's kind of the Swiss Army knife of the channel. She fills in on production. She fills in on commentary. She fills in the chair on camera. She helps us with outreach. So she's really the Swiss Army knife. And then we also have Chase, who's our audio engineer, who's also learned how to produce the show. And so, and then you have me and Rob, and then we have one video editor who sometimes edits videos, but we use him from, he's more of like a 1099 employee versus like an actual person who gets paid by the hour. And so that's kind of our team, but it's not, what you see on like at face value as you see Rob and I, but there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, and none of that would be possible, one, without Rocco, and then with Chase and Ashley as well. Those guys are awesome.
Okay, let's talk about Rob. So Rob, to us, to the viewers,
Do we have to?
I was going to say he's got a very
Yeah.
lovable personality. What
Yeah,
is he
yeah.
like
He's
behind
so lovable.
the scenes?
One thing I love about that guy is he's very intense. And what you see on camera is how he is off camera. Um, I've watched businesses implode. I watched my dad's business implode because he picked the wrong business partner, and it was family. It was his cousin, right? We all think, oh, it's family. They would never screw me over. Those are usually the ones that screw you over. So he has just been, I love that man. He is inspiring. He works his butt off. Um, we had some rocky times in the beginning because I get in, I get in little moments where I get a little complacent. And he would come in all fired up. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I'm not going to talk about what we talk about, but it would really be like that B12 shot in the backside that I needed at the time to really like get things going. And the guy's not afraid. He's just not. He's like, I was like, bro, where are we going to get all this money to put up the LED wall? He's like, if I got to sell my house, I'll sell it. I don't care. He's like, I don't care. He's like, I'm all in on this, man. He's like, whatever we got to do, I'll make it happen. And I believe him. Which from a business partner standpoint, to have someone like that moving forward with you and your business, it's an ace in the hole. He's awesome, man. The one thing I will say is the man needs to learn how to text back better. Damn it, Robin, if you're watching this, text back better. There's so many people like, hey, I reached out to Rob. He hasn't gotten back to me. I'm like, it's not personal, I promise. I'm his business partner, and sometimes I don't hear from him from at least like text message. He doesn't reply. He's like, oh yeah, I was supposed to reply to that. And so no, but he's great. We've really, we always talk about how lucky we got, like kind of like just right timing, right place, us together, business partners, and our personalities kind of match. His strengths versus my strengths, his weaknesses, my weaknesses are his strengths, and vice versa. And so I think when people talk about luck, that was the luckiest thing that happened to us, is the fact that we kind of were able to come together and agree to launch a business. And it's been awesome. It's been really good.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, you guys do bring the entertainment. And I really do like it when you disagree as well. I think just
Yeah.
adds to it. But with the channel, it is very much informative. It's always on the go. There's always something. You're always talking about something new every single day. How do you keep up with the ever-changing space of crypto?
A lot of favorite tabs on the when you find a website with good info. In a bull market, it's easy to do a show, right? Every day. And we do it 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We're actually going to be starting a trading show as well. Over the next couple of weeks. But from the news side, I mean, there's some days where I come in there because I'm in control of all the content. I put all the content together. I'm like, hey, we're going to talk about this, this, and this. I control the pace of the show. There's some days I'm like, look, Rob, there's not a lot of news, dude. I'm seeing on social media, a lot of people are having this discussion. Let's talk about that. Let's give our thoughts on this. And hey, let's take this conversation a little deeper. I'll sometimes I'll give them a heads up. I'm like, hey, look, I'm going to ask you what you think this is going to look like 5 years from now. Or, hey, I'm going to ask you for your 3 favorite projects in this sector. And so the beauty of us is we are constantly talking to people, right? We've constantly talked to people because we come from a service industry, right? And so we're very good on the fly. We're very good multitaskers. And we're able to kind of bounce off each other. Like if I feel like, and I know this, and he doesn't have to tell me, if I feel like Rob's having an off day, I'll crank it up on my side. And there's been times where I've come in there and I've had an off day and he cranks it up on his side. And so we complement each other very well. And just communication. And some days there's so much content that you need like 3 hours to do it, but we try to compress it down to 1 hour. And other days there's really not a lot. And those days there's not a lot, we try to focus more on the community, maybe do some Q&As, take topics deeper, try to find on social media what the trending topics are that people are talking about, and really dig into those and kind of give our thoughts. So
Okay, we'll come back to the community. but you've had some amazing guests on the show, like Charles Hopkinson's the founder of Cardano.
Yeah.
How did you get Charles on the channel?
Whew, okay. A lot of emails, a lot of follow-ups. We got in contact with them, and we've seen them at conferences, and you try to be the sneaky, like, follow them around without them knowing you're following them, because you want to just find that opportunity to slide in and say hey. And so there was a conference in Vegas, excuse me, and we got the email we got, I think, JJ's email, and emailed a few times, no response. Pretty sure it went to a junk mail. At that time, I don't think we even had our Sin City Crypto website, so it came from a @Gmail account. And so, like, for me personally, if I see that and you say you're representing a business, I'm more than likely not going to respond. Or I'm going to respond and say, hey, make sure it's not a scam. Would you email me from the business website? So we finally were able to nail down a time. We brought him on the show, and it was great. And then when they came back for, I believe it was the Rare Evo conference, we were able to get another interview in person, because the first one was over video call, in person at the Caesar's Palace, the convention center there. And so just relentless emailing, following up with people, and just, making connections and relationships.
Awesome. So let's touch upon the channel's VIP community that you have. Tell me about that. Tell me a little bit about the VIP community, because I think they have a lot more access and mentorship from you and Rob.
Are you talking about the Patreon?
The Patreon.
Yeah. So obviously we run a business, so we need to make money, right? We make money from YouTube, from sponsors, and a lot of people, what they do, and I'm not going to name any names, but they tend to extract value from their community, whether it's launching a token, whatever. If we are asking our community for money, we want to make sure that they're getting something of value to them, right? Maybe not in a dollar amount, but maybe in knowledge, access, insight, whatever. And so we started with the YouTube memberships. There's 3 tiers, like a $3 tier, which you literally just get nothing except some emojis. There's a $7 tier, which also you really get nothing. And then the whale tier, at that time, before Patreon, we did a special whale Discord channel where I would give, some extra info, inside alpha, some things I wouldn't necessarily maybe share on YouTube, but would share to people who are willing to pay, because it's not your average person that just comes in and out once every 3 weeks to watch a show. These are people that have more than likely been around the space for a while, that are, to them, $25 or $50 is not a big deal. So you already there, it's like, okay, you're willing to invest in yourself. And so certain things I can't really say on the show that I'm able to say to, the Patreon or the whale members. But the problem was, YouTube takes a 30% cut. And so for every $100, you only get $70. And then you got to pay taxes on that too. So we decided to move that over to Patreon. Patreon, I think, is only like 8%. So what we decided to do is, we're like, look, it'll be $50. It's not too much. It's a little on the pricier side compared to some other ones, but people are getting a lot of value. And so we do trading in there, right? Trading, copy trading. We got alpha insights. I'm pretty well connected in the space with a lot of different teams. And also, want to do something fun too, because we want Patreon, just like we do on the show for the live show. We want it to be an experience. For the Patreon, we want it to be a community. And so Rob's got his own channel, right? This is titled Rob Unfiltered. Rocco has his own channel on Discord that he posts in there. And then we're doing something with Ashley called Ashley's Classroom. I'm not going to say what it is, but once we get to 50 Patreon members, which I think we're like 11 away, that server is going to open, and we'll be doing weekly giveaways, and it's going to be something very, very fun. So we're excited to, once we hit that number, to announce that. But alpha insight, answering people's questions, my personal portfolio, I've shared in there with people what I hold, my holdings. I've offered people, I've gotten on Zoom calls with people because they had a question about how to bridge ETH from Ethereum to Base to buy this token. And so I've done that to our most loyal people. And not to say I wouldn't do it for just someone who's not paying for a Patreon or anything else, but obviously, those people do take priority, and I'm sure people would understand that. But it's all about, I've always been taught, if you help people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And so if I can help people get the information they need, the insight they need, the trading they need, whatever they need to feel like they're making money and being successful in crypto, then I know ultimately I'll get what I want.
Awesome. So let's go back to your investment or your own journey in crypto. So obviously we had the bottom in 2022, and then since then Bitcoin has been going up in price. Last year was a really good year for Bitcoin. I think it started off, or the bottom was something like 38,000 US dollars.
Yeah.
And then the high was over 100,000 US dollars, and Trump got into power as well. And this year it's looking very, very bullish, although we are in a correction. Have you started trading yet? Because I know you're going to start a trading channel on the channel, on your own channel, and I do know that you like to do TA on your channel as well.
Yeah, I really started actively trading about 6 months ago. I just wasn't very vocal about it. It's not something I used to not be a fan of, like, telling people what I'm trading or I'm in this, I'm in that, for the fear of hurting my own ego. Is if I'm wrong and someone else goes my way and loses money, I'm going to be like, okay, wow. But at some point, I'm like, look, I'm going to tell people this is what I'm doing. I'm not telling you to do it, but this is what I'm doing. If you want to take any info from that or do whatever you want with it, go right ahead. But so I started doing that. And then definitely, in our Patreon is where we put all of our trades, some charts and breaking down why, I'm like, hey, I'm going long on this trade. I'm going long on this coin. But here's why. Here are some pictures, some charts. What metrics am I using? What indicators am I using? So, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely more active in trading personally, and it'll definitely be more prevalent on the show in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. So let's go back to your family. So your wife was very, very supportive, and she must be so proud of you now, because the channel is absolutely amazing. And obviously you're starting to trade and you're starting to expand and all the rest of it. So what about the kids? How old are the kids, and do they ever watch Daddy?
So I got 3. I got a 12-year-old, an 11-year-old, and my little princess who's 6. The boys, they both want their own YouTube channel, right? They, my middle son, he just makes these, I don't know. He's got a really funny personality. He's just a funny kid. He's charming. He's goofy. And so he does the goofy stuff. My other son, my older one, he's a little more serious. He plays sports. He plays soccer. And so he has his own little setup in his room, and he bought speakers. So when he plays his video game, the sound can be on the stream. And so anyways, yeah, they're definitely want to kind of follow in their dad's footsteps. My daughter is just like, will you play headbands with me? So, but I try to keep my kids in the loop of what my vision for the family is, right? Or what me and my wife's vision is. I'm like, hey boys, because there'll be times where I don't see him for 4 or 5 days. And I'll be like, hey boys, to let you know, this is what's going on with the channel. This is what we're looking to do. This is my goal, because I want them at a young age to understand that it takes a lot of hard work to ultimately get to where you want to. And I want them to be part of the journey. Excuse me. So that way, when they don't see their dad for 3 or 4 days, they're not like, well, what's going on? Like, okay, daddy's working really hard. This is what he's doing to get to this point here in 2 years, 5 years, 3 years, whatever. And so I try to keep, it's a family thing with us. And, I'll show him the portfolio sometimes. And my 10-year-old, the middle one, is like, his dream vacation is Hawaii, right? And he's like, Dad, are we gonna fly first class now? I'm like, you're not flying first class, dude. I'm like, 2 of you would fit in a coach seat. So we just have fun, and I want the kids to know that even though they might not see me a lot, um, they know that it's for a good reason, and they feel included, and they're super supportive, and it's a family thing. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And you've touched upon it here as well, because my next question was going to be, what's next for David?
Me personally, it's the channel. It's Sin City Crypto. I've put my time, my money. I've missed trips. I've missed birthdays. I mean, I'm 100% all in on making this channel successful, and so that's my sole focus is that, and trying to balance family life in it as well. It could be definitely challenging at times, but again, when you have a supportive wife and supportive kids, it makes it so much easier when you don't have to come home and get a guilt trip about why you did this or why you couldn't do this or why you missed that. So I feel very lucky, and it's like, you got to capitalize on it, and so that's my focus is bull market's here. What am I doing to blow this channel up to 1 million subscribers, to hire more people, to put out more content, to just blow up the media company, and crypto will be at the forefront of that. And so that's my main focus.
Awesome.
And
That's
also,
brilliant.
also the trip to Hawaii too.
The trip to Hawaii. Yep. Can't
Yeah.
forget that. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. Thank you so much, David, for coming
Yeah.
on and sharing your crypto story. It's very inspiring. And what you've done with the channel is absolutely amazing. It's actually one of my favorite channels.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.